Happy Thursday and welcome to another edition of Husker Online Headlines. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple. We're about ready to go out to Indiana. And it feels like a non-conference trip because this is the 14th season we've been in the Big Ten. To put that in perspective, Nebraska's only in the Big 12 for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, think how many times you went to Waco, Lubbock.
Oh, God, yes.
I mean, you went everywhere.
Yeah.
But this is just the second trip we'll make out to Bloomington, Indiana in the 14 years of the Big Ten. Well, that takes us to headline number one. It's no doubt going to be the most meaningful Indiana-Nebraska game that we've seen since the Huskers have joined the Big Ten Conference, as Kirk Cignetti has the Hoosiers ranked in the top 20. It's homecoming. It's sold out. Fox's big noon kickoff is going to be in Bloomington. Urban Meyer, Joel Klatt, Matt Leinart, the whole gang, Gus Johnson. It is a big stage for Nebraska here this week as they take on the Hoosiers in big noon kickoff.
Yeah, it might be. I mean, Sean, I'm 58. I've been following college football since I was 10 or earlier. I can't believe there's been many bigger games for Indiana than this.
Well, their COVID year, people forget they were 6-2.
Mm-hmm.
And they beat Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was like a good year for them,
mm-hmm.
but nobody could go.
Right.
And nobody watched football during the COVID year. The ratings were atrocious.
Were they atrocious?
Yeah.
So this is there. I'm not saying it's the biggest, but I wouldn't be surprised if some people would try to make that argument.
It will be the most watched Indiana football game. And my guess would be in our lifetime.
It's a very interesting situation because Nebraska, it's not often for Nebraska that Nebraska is not the team in focus. This is a perfect concoction for Nebraska. Nebraska is good. Nebraska might be better than Indiana if you just look across the board at overall talent. And you know what? They're the underdog. They're coming in under the radar. Nebraska coming in under the radar.
Yeah, the perception of Indiana, too, with their schedule. They've done what they're supposed to do. They're 6-0. They've blown out everybody. They've been favored in all 6 games. And to be fair, Nebraska's been favored in all 6 games. They lost to Illinois, and we now know Illinois is a pretty good team.
Pretty good.
Maybe not a great team.
Gave
but
up
pretty
49 to Purdue, which makes you wonder a little bit. But no, Indiana's played nobody. Indiana. You'd
have a hard time putting together a worse non-conference schedule than Indiana.
It's West. So for people that don't know, it was Florida International, which, by the way, just lost to Texas El Paso last night. Texas El Paso got its first. Scotty Walden got his first win as UTEP's coach.
Our boy Scotty.
Yeah, our boy Scotty. So it was FIU, Florida International, Western.
The Leathernecks.
Yeah, Western Illinois at UCLA. Charlotte, Maryland at Northwestern. So, listen, Indiana has not seen anything like Nebraska's defense, nothing comparable. How will they react? They probably haven't seen any quarterback as good as Dylan Raiola. How will they react? Again,
they've not been down all season.
The game, right? The game's unique to me because of what I said. Nebraska it seems like they're always the focus. They're not. But it's, again, the concoction is so good. Nebraska's good, and they're the underdog. That's a great, from a psychology standpoint, you don't want it you can't get it any better than that.
Yeah, how will Indiana handle all of this, too?
Right.
They've only been on national television one time in 6 games.
Yeah.
And Nebraska's been on 3 or 4.
So here it is, Joel Klatt, Gus Johnson on the call, Urban Meyer's in town. It's a big deal. It's a big deal in Indiana. The stadium's sold out. How will that team react?
And it's funny because this Friday is their big hoops spectacular, the hoops night, their scrimmage.
Is it?
And football has kind of taken away some of that, and that doesn't happen. It's the same thing with Nebraska basketball here. Usually, football overshines it, where in Indiana, basketball outshines the football. They're mirrors of one another.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So the stage, God, I hate to say it because it's a huge cliche. It's set, and it's a really interesting place that we're going to see here. It's a fascinating thing that's about to unfold.
And our friend and colleague Jim Rose had a great analogy on Cignetti. He compares him to Bill Snyder, just in the fact that he wins. He's got kind of a process. He's not real likable, just kind of a no nonsense, detailed person that doesn't, sugarcoat it. And, I think that's a good analogy. I mean, he's to me, he's like a cross of Mark Mangino and Bill Snyder.
I get that to a certain extent. I don't know that he's at Indiana for the long haul like Snyder was at Kansas State for the long haul. I think if Indiana were to win 9 or 10, he'll be out. He'll go find
to the SEC.
Yeah, to a bigger job.
But the question is, is he sexy enough for a bigger SEC school?
It's a good question.
Because I do think think about the climb he's had to make. Similar to Lance Leipold. I mean, he had to really
he did have to
slum it in the lower levels.
Okay, here's my question to you. How sexy do you have to be to take over at Auburn? I mean, Hugh Freeze, is he sexy? I mean, the only thing that I think about,
but you got to be one of them. You got to be a good old boy down there.
That's not a bad point. Whereas this guy said, "Google me." Hugh Freeze would probably say, "No, don't Google me."
It's your boy.
But
don't Google me.
Yeah, don't Google me. I could be wrong. I mean, maybe Google me will be at Indiana for the long haul. I just my thought is no, he'll go try to find a better job.
What if Florida takes Lane Kiffin?
Okay.
And then Ole Miss needs a coach.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That would be a good spot. Or Florida might not get Lane Kiffin,
and they go to him.
Right. So there's got to be some.
We're assuming Napier's going to get fired. I mean, Napier's not fired yet.
No, neither is Hugh Freeze. So we'll see what shakes out. But I would think he'd be bound for the SEC. And I got to tell you, I think what I know of him, I think he'd fit pretty well down there.
Well, he was Nick Saban's initial wide receivers coach at Alabama.
Bam.
I mean, 07 to 10. I mean, that's a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. So I don't want to get too ahead of myself with praise of Indiana. The beauty is this is a truth game. You're going to find out about Indiana.
He worked for Nick Saban when Nebraska was in the Big 12. I mean, so it's his time down there was a long time, but give him credit for what he's done. It's going to be a great stage. And before we take it to headline number 2, today's HuskerOnline headlines brought to you by our exciting new sponsor, Vintage Custom Homes. Many people only get to build a new dream home once in their lifetime. And when you build a home, you want to do it right. You want to work with veteran builders, people that have been around, that know how to do and build exactly what you're looking for. Keep you on budget, limit all the add-ons and the change orders and the things that you might deal with when you're building a home. And Vintage Custom Homes, they are the veterans, they're the pros, and they're going to help you through that process. Based in Gretna, they've been around since 2008, helping you build the home of your dreams. Check them out on their website for more. They've got a great website and, all of everything on there. It's vintagecustomhomes.ne.com. That's vintagecustomhomes.ne.com. Tell them HuskerOnline sent you, but look at the work here, the kitchens and the woodworks and the finishes.
Very handsome.
They are a premier builder. We might need to send them over to your place, Sip.
Yeah, I wouldn't object to that.
Look at that. I mean, that closet. I mean, it's an amazing.
I could definitely. Oh my God, you don't want to see my closet. You do not want to see.
I have a very good idea of what your closet looks like, and it doesn't look like that. I've seen your suitcases, which at one trip was a Target bag. I don't want to get
easy,
but check them out. VintageCustomHomes.ne.com. Tell them HuskerOnline sent you. Thank you to Vintage Custom Homes for sponsoring us here on the HuskerOnline Show. All right, headline number 2. Mm-hmm. Who has the advantage at quarterback? You got Indiana with the seasoned veteran Curtis Rourke, who's operating as well as any quarterback in the Big Ten. And then Dylan Raiola. When you talk about draft prospects, you can make a case that Dylan Raiola is the best NFL draft prospect quarterback maybe in the Big Ten.
Wow.
With the path he's on. I mean, tell me who
I mean, I don't know. I'd have to think about. I mean, Dylan,
the USC guy's all right.
He's all right. This guy might be. This guy, Curtis Rourke, is showing up on Heisman lists now. On like for instance, ESPN, they do their weekly Heisman watch.
He's on the list.
He's 5. Yeah, he's 5. Who has the advantage? Who has the QB advantage? I I'd have to say Indiana because of his he's a veteran. He's 6'5", 223. He's in his 6th year of college. Now think about Dylan. Dylan's not going to make it 6 years in college.
So when he started his career at Ohio for Frank Solich,
2019,
Dylan Raiola was in junior high.
There you go. So
think about that.
Yeah, I have to give Indiana. I hate to do it because you know how highly I think of Dylan, but again, this is a seasoned guy. 2019 was his first year. He redshirted. This was a kid who redshirted at Ohio, and then he followed his brother to Ohio, and then he came on the scene and then he took over as the starter. It was I believe a 3-year starter. He ran option. He's athletic. You mentioned the other day, I talked to Frank about it. Frank Solich recruited him out of Ontario. He went to a Holy Trinity High School in Ontario. And he has found a offense that he operates well, and he's completing 74% of his passes. He's got 14 touchdown passes with only 2 picks. He's the number one. He has the number 1 QBR in the Big Ten. I think they have by any really objective measure, you'd have to say it's Curtis Rourke.
I would love to know the portal recruiting on him, how hot of a prospect was he?
He was the 17th rated quarterback in the portal class.
Was this his only legit Power 4 offer? Because Indiana doesn't strike me as someone that's going to break the bank for a quarterback in the portal.
Probably not. Probably not.
Could Minnesota have gotten him over Max
Brosmer? Yeah, a good question. But I don't think Minnesota breaks the bank either.
No, I know. And so, could Rutgers have gotten this guy?
Yeah, I would think so.
That was the tier.
I think you named another one that doesn't break the bank.
But this was a great get for Indiana. I'm just curious what his market was.
I am too.
Because if we now know what we know, can you imagine what his market would be today?
He'd be a millionaire.
And he had been, and this is what the portal is for, in my opinion. He had been at Ohio 5 years.
Yep.
What more could he have accomplished there?
Now, this isn't a bad look. This isn't a bad look transfer. This is a kid who did his thing at Ohio.
Gave Ohio 5 years.
Gave Ohio 5 good years. And had a winning record. I should be able to say the winning record off the top of my head. But he had a winning. Oh, it was 22-11.
His brother played at Ohio too, right?
Yeah, he followed his brother there. So no, he gave Ohio all he could, and there's nothing wrong in this situation with in my opinion, playing 5 years at a school and saying, "Okay, I'm going to go in the Big Ten now and see what I got." In my opinion, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Frank Solich was a sneaky good Canadian recruiter. He got Darren Dietrich out of there.
He was sneaky good, really.
Patrick Kabongo, Sandro DeAngelis.
He talked about that the other day. Yeah, he was good, and he was good. Even you don't think about what he did in Massachusetts. He went and got Mike Kroll from Sudbury, Massachusetts. Now the older listeners will remember this. Mike Kroll was an excellent end, a defensive end. He went and got Joe Sims out of Sudbury, Massachusetts. Frank recruited all up and down the seaboard, down from Massachusetts to Florida. That was his.
Well, in that short conference in New Jersey, he really made it.
He said this. He got Nebraska into New Jersey,
and working on the book that we worked on. It took. You have to gain the Tom Osborne told me this. You have to gain the trust of those coaches in New Jersey at that time in the 80s to get them to send their players to Nebraska. And think about this: Mike Rozier was the number 1 pick in the USFL Heisman winner. Irving Fryer was the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. One of the most accomplished receivers in program history. And Frank got both those guys out of New Jersey.
I know. That's pretty good.
2 number 1 picks.
Yeah.
2 number 1 picks.
Right. He went and got Jamal Lord way later. He did.
The Peters.
The Peters. So,
Doug Coleman.
Back to the quarterback discussion. Dylan, this is a big challenge for Dylan because of I'd say because of the scene. He hasn't seen this. Now, Purdue had a good crowd. I want to make that clear to people.
It was sold out.
It wasn't a bad crowd at Purdue. So he's been on the road in a challenging environment. Not like this one, though. Purdue was sold out, but it wasn't full.
It's a noon game out there, though. I do think that's better than at night.
100. Always better. Yeah.
Everyone's still trying to kind of get their sea legs going by 11 or noon for these early games where, later in the day, you're ready.
Yeah. Yeah. We're kind of, no doubt about it. Now, I don't pretend to know what that scene's going to be like at Indiana, because it's not like we're talking about a program that's used to this. In fact, we're talking about a program that's Indiana has never won 10 games. Okay. It's never won 10 games. We're talking about a program, Indiana, that hasn't won a bowl game since 1961. This is all very new to Indiana. What's going on now? You mentioned the COVID year, and they had Penix, and Tom Allen had them going right before Penix transferred.
Well, and DeBoer was there. I mean, I think a big reason why Allen got going was Penix and DeBoer.
100.
And when Penix and DeBoer left, what happened to Tom Allen?
Nosedive,
huge nosedive.
Yeah.
So what was crazy about that era of Indiana before, they had the right guy. He just wasn't the head coach.
He just wasn't the head coach. That's football, baby. I mean, it's really hard to get all the ducks lined up like you need them in this sport. It is.
They had DeBoer and Penix.
I know.
The coach of Alabama and an Atlanta Falcons quarterback.
Yep. And they did well.
Oh, they came to Lincoln in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they were well put together.
They lost though.
Right? Nebraska lost Indiana.
Oh God, that's right.
That's the game Noah Vedral started.
That's right.
Nebraska was up 14-3.
I'm sorry.
And they blew the game.
So who has the QB advantage? I think you just, again, by any objective measure, you have to say Indiana.
All right, here we go. Before we go to headline number 3, thank you for joining us on Husker Online Headlines. We are brought to you by BetterHelp. And sometimes just the stress of day-to-day life, just, everything you got going on, you just need someone to talk to. You might have just things going on in your life that, you don't want to talk to a family member or a friend. You want to talk to somebody else that can help you maybe get through some of these problems. BetterHelp is a great way to do it because you don't have to go to a doctor's office. You don't have to schedule an appointment. You set it up on your time with a therapist that fits you, and they've got tons of great options and people that you can talk to about whatever issues you might be dealing with. It's just a great way to get through what are tough times for a lot of people, no matter what's going on in your life. And we've got a great special right now for our Husker Online viewers. Go to betterhelp.com/Husker, and we're going to give you 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/Husker to receive 10% off your first month of BetterHelp. Thank you to betterhelp.com for sponsoring us here on Husker Online Headlines. All right, headline number 3. The Black Shirts will face its toughest test yet. This is a Hoosier team that obviously ranks in the top 10 in offense. They get you from all different ways. We talked about Rourke, but have they seen a defensive line like Nebraska?
What do you think?
No.
What do you think? Nothing like it, probably. Have they seen anything like Ty Robinson and Nash Hutmacher? The clear answer is no.
And they're going to get a rested polar bear and Terrence Knighton refers to his guys. He goes, I got a bear and a gorilla. And they're gonna get a rested bear and gorilla coming in.
And not only that, it's not Nebraska's much more. Those guys are excellent, but it's John Bullock, it's Javin Wright,
James Williams.
It's James Williams coming off the edge. It's Bayer coming off the edge. Sometimes it's MJ Sherman. It is a back end that is as strong as it's been since the Pelini era, in my opinion. Especially if Tommy Hill's healthy.
And Matt Rule today was asked that. And again, it's going to be a game time decision.
They can tiptoe around that very easily in the way they've done it this week. That question is, what if Tommy Hill's healthy? What do you do with Sierra Wright? Well, we're going to need them all because and they're right. This is a 4-wide game. It's often going to be a 4-wide game. They're going to need a lot of DBs. So they've done a good job. It doesn't have to.
Isn't it as simple though? If Tommy is healthy but still kind of recovering, you put him on the boundary, and then put Sierra Wright on the field.
Yeah,
where more runnings required.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, 100. And then you take Buford, move him into probably Hartzog's spot. Doesn't mean Hartzog's not going to play. They're going to need him. But yeah, again, the defense, toughest test yet. Now here's the thing: Colorado was awfully good. Now, Colorado changed this offense after the Nebraska game. I think I would give Nebraska credit for making Pat Shurmur at Colorado change things up. My guess is Pat Shurmur had to go to Deion Sanders and say, look, we have to have the quarterback run. He's got to scramble for yards, and at times we got to run him. They weren't doing that against Nebraska. They weren't throwing short very often against Nebraska. They're taking shots. They changed it up. Nebraska made Colorado change up. In fact, Colorado would never do this, but I think Colorado owes Nebraska a little bit. They had to change.
God, and Colorado should have beat Kansas State.
I know. Colorado got good. That's a good win. And Colorado's a good offense. Come on. Colorado better players on the perimeter than Indiana.
Like if Colorado is playing Nebraska this week.
Just stick with this conversation. Colorado has better perimeter players than Indiana.
For sure.
There's no doubt in my mind. There's no Travis Hunter waiting for Nebraska on Saturday.
Well, and I think Shedeur Sanders is better than
yes.
Rourke. I mean,
oh, yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah. This kid's not Rourke is a very good quarterback. But he's not a first round.
Colorado was not as well thought out schematically as what Indiana is going to do.
Bam. That's the key. So it's going to test Nebraska that way. They're going to test him with Elijah Sarrett, who's a good receiver. 6'2", 210. He has 10 career 100-yard games. That's the guy to watch, number 13. Their running backs are fine. They scare me a little bit because they're those little built guys, 5'9", 210 area. They hide and then they pop out. You know what I mean? Those kind of guys scare me a little bit. They hide behind a big lineman, and then boom, they're shooting through holes. Scares me a little, but their run game doesn't scare me a lot. They got a pretty good tight end, Zach Horton.
But look, Nebraska's not allowed a rushing touchdown. They are the only defense in the country that can say that.
Right. So I don't know. I don't know what that's going to look like with this team. But they have 3 starters on offense from JMU, from James Madison. And it's Sarrett. It's a running back name. Hold on, I gotta put on my glasses. Tyson Lawton is a guy from JMU. He's averaging 4.8 a carry, 329 yards, nothing eye popping. And then the tight end Zach Horton, he's got 8 catches, so nothing big. I've looked at their personnel, and I will tell you, I'm not blown away. I can see why a guy like Lee Sterling went on Iowa radio today. He's of Paramount Sports and picked Nebraska. I'm not surprised.
But what they are, as we said, is they're well thought out.
Yeah, they must be.
You know, they've got good coaches. I mean,
yeah, I think they got a really good head coach. Their staff is average age of 34. They're just a bunch of guys I don't really know who they are. Average age of 34. I think it's the second youngest staff in the FBS. So I don't know. I think Signetti's really good. I don't know what they got in terms of a staff. The only holdover, Sean, was their offensive line coach, and I know he's good. Bob, I'm going to say his name is Beaufort. But there's just a lot of. I look at them, and I'm not blown away. Except you're right. The offense challenges you because of scheme, and it's pretty precise. So, yeah.
Well, and Tony White, though, we've seen that he's been able to change their scheme.
Yes.
You know, the Purdue and the Rutgers games.
Big test for Tony.
I mean, Nebraska really kind of retooled some of their things after Illinois and Northern Iowa kind of exposed a few things.
This is a huge test. Now, this is a common sense discussion, but I've heard it from 2 coaches this week. It is a huge coaching test when both teams have a week off. Evenly
Hold that
matched.
thought, though. That's our next headline there.
Yeah.
You wrote these headlines. You should know.
Yeah.
All right, let's say before we take it to headline number 4.
Okay.
HuskerOnline headlines brought to you by Ellerbrock-Norris. They've been helping Nebraska business owners protect their purpose for over 120 years with risk management solutions built for local businesses. Ellerbrock-Norris partners with you on commercial insurance, group benefits, business exit planning, safety, and more. Start thinking long-term with your business and create a risk management strategy protected. Are your employee benefit costs going through the roof? Talk to Ellerbrock. Are workplace injuries skyrocketing your workers' compensation costs? Talk to Ellerbrock. Hoping to retire in the next 10 years and sell the business to family, key employees, or even a friendly competitor? Talk to Ellerbrock. Ellerbrock-Norris is helping you protect your purpose, whether it's your business and the employees in it, your life outside of work, or your future retirement goals. Head to Ellerbrock-Norris.com/HuskerOnline today to get your free risk evaluation. Okay, get into that point you just said. Headline number 4. Who utilized their bye week better? I stopped you in your tracks there because you were about ready to transition us to headline number 4.
Right. No, thank you for stopping me, Sean. Now I don't know if you do this. I'm interested in this. How often do you watch a game in the context of who's out coaching who? I don't really do that very often. But this game, it'll be in the back of my mind more prominently than it usually is. Who's out coaching who? Who's making the right moves? Who's got wrinkles? Who's got wrinkles that are visible? Like Illinois had some wrinkles against Nebraska. That game, I hate to say it, but Nebraska got out coached. That's what I thought. I sat there that game thinking they're getting out coached.
They were off balance.
Yeah, thank you. Good way to put it. And then there were some plays.
They weren't physically better necessarily than Nebraska. They just got Nebraska off balance. And that's the name of football. How can you make the opponent be off balance?
Right. It's the name of the game in most sports, in boxing, in wrestling. You're trying to establish leverage, balance, get the guy off balance.
Everyone's big, strong, and fast.
Right. But yeah, Illinois had Nebraska on its heels a lot. So now you watch this game in that context because both are coming off bye weeks. They had all the time in the world to study vulnerabilities. Each team has vulnerabilities, and who's doing the best job of exploiting them. That's one area you watch very closely. Tony White has a big job. So does Satterfield. They all do. This is that I'm going to watch this game a little more with that a little bit more in mind than usual.
Do we make too much though about what can get done in a bye week? Is a bye week as much about rest and mental recovery as it is putting in new things? Because
I just think it depends who you're talking about. I think with the coaching staff, it's not about rest and mental recovery. It's about
they took the weekend off.
Well, that's nice, but they don't need a bunch of time off, and that it's more about scheme for those guys. And again, finding areas of weakness and knowing how to exploit them. What can we do here? And how do we cover up our deficiencies better? Working on your deficiencies is another big thing during the off week. Come on, with special teams conversation, they had to get that punt block situation cleared up. When you have 2 punts blocked in a game, you better address it at a high level.
Well, we've hit on, part of the issue was they were trying to block 10 with 8. And when you let Division I athletes run free at a punter at speeds of 4.5 40s, they're going to block the punt. Right. It's not like the snapper's issue. You have to put a body on a body.
Right.
And
so how they get in that situation is
they didn't recognize they could. I think they almost couldn't believe that Rutgers was leaving their gunners uncovered because it was setting up what happened.
Yeah. Well,
but they were very lucky they didn't lose the game on those plays.
Right. So that had to be addressed. But no, this is Cignetti. I don't know. I don't want to give him too much credit before he wins a game like this. We'll see. You're going to find out some hard truths in this game. And one of them is Indiana real? Are they really real? Because what if Nebraska holds them to 10, to 12, to 14?
That's the thing. There's not a lot of teams that are going to score more than 20 on Nebraska.
Okay, that's probably the threshold. I'd say the threshold for Nebraska, if Indiana's total creeps up to 21, 24, 27, trouble. But if Nebraska can hold them, I would think, to 21 to 20, 20 points, 21, you might get out of there. You might get out of there 24 to 21, 27 to 21, something like that.
And take out the UTEP and the Northern Iowa game. Nebraska hasn't scored more than 28 in their 4 Power 4 games.
Right. So again, coaching. What did Satterfield? Did he not just Satterfield? It's a whole staff effort to find some things on offense that make you more consistent, that take pressure off Dylan. And at this point now we're talking about a running game. The best way to take pressure off your freshman is to run the ball better than being ranked 90th in the country, which is where Nebraska is right.
Well, and can they get more of those 10 to 25 yard runs.
Takes a lot of pressure off everybody when that happens.
And look, they're going to get 4 to 6 yard runs because if you block a play properly, you'll get that.
Well, they have an explosive running back in Dowdell, and he can get you 4 and 5 pretty. I mean, never easy, but easier than a lot of guys. The key with Dowdell is, and you see this, we haven't given much voice to it. He gets to the second level and he tries to run over people. It's the great backs you see get to the second level and then give them a shoulder move, give them a hip move, cut away, and then go. You don't run over everybody. They've addressed that themselves about Dowdell. Dowdell's just got to take that next step as an athlete and realize, oh, he's a powerful guy.
He broke Shiloh Sanders' arm.
Right. He can break guys' arms. He can lower the boom on them, but that's not. It's nice to do that, but it'd be nicer if he was running down the field for 40 yards. That's what this offense needs.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see some of the wrinkles we see for Nebraska. All right, before we go to headline number 5, HuskerOnline headlines brought to you by Homefield Apparel. You know, it's basketball season coming around the corner, volleyball, football. You got to get geared up. You got to get a new look, some fresh threads.
Do your daughters get geared up?
They do.
I bet they do. And I bet they don't just wear anything.
They have, Carly has a Tominaga jersey. And they both have a volleyball. They both have a Choboy volleyball jersey.
Laney.
Yeah. But check out Homefield Apparel.
Check out that stuff.
Look at all the gear. You know, they've got custom stuff, not just the stuff you're going to find at your favorite retail store in town.
Right.
This is stuff that you got to find on Homefield. And we've got a great promo for our HuskerOnline viewers here. Use the promo code Husker24 at homefieldapparel.com. And we're going to give you 15% off. That's promo code Husker24 to receive 15% off at homefieldapparel.com. Thank you to Homefield Apparel for sponsoring us here on HuskerOnline headlines. All right, headline 5. We always do this odds and ends. And I want to start with this because we had Dr. Jeffrey Gold, the president of the University of Nebraska, on Big Red Wrap-Up this week. And he covered a lot of ground, Steve, a lot of ground as far as just the future of the AAU. And why is that important?
Why is it important?
Because Nebraska is the only member of an 18-team league that's not in the AAU.
Is that now? Let's have a conversation. You wrote a column about it. Very enlightening comments from Dr. Gold, and you mentioned that Nebraska is the only school in the Big Ten not to be in the AAU. They're also the only school to ever be kicked out of the AAU, to be summoned, to be escorted out.
But others have been removed, but they resigned.
They resigned on their own accord.
Under Harvey Perlman, they chose to be fired versus resign.
Yeah.
I mean, they got voted out publicly. They could have just resigned.
Okay, here's my question to you. Does it make Nebraska vulnerable? Are they vulnerable does it make them vulnerable? That's what I'm asking you.
You know,
in the sporting realm, are they vulnerable?
I think you got to look at worst case scenarios. Like if, let's say football falls off the map.
Right.
And then the TV ratings aren't there to support Nebraska.
Right.
And then they're the outlier.
Right.
You know, then you become vulnerable.
Yeah.
But right now they're not, because football is generating huge ratings and numbers, and the other sports are as well. Mm-hmm. But you don't want to be the one.
No.
And it's very much
preventable.
And they've already taken the steps. Dr. Gold broke this down. So a lot of it is your research dollars and how they're viewed. Nebraska has their 4 campuses, Lincoln, Kearney, Omaha, and the Med Center, in 4 different pots of money. Mm-hmm. Well, they have now combined it to where all of them count together. And instead of being ranked 120th, when they combine campuses, including the Med Center and Lincoln, they're now 60th. Mm-hmm. So that is AAU material, but it's still a process. And that's the complicated thing. You don't just submit an application online. You have to be invited back to the AAU.
And like Gold told you, 10-year process, perhaps 10 years. Now, my other question to you would be, is this anything that Matt Rule should concern himself with at all?
No, I mean, that's where people like Gold, you know, and I believe that's why he was the logical choice to be the president, because of his relationships with the people that run the AAU.
There's nothing that would threaten Nebraska's recruiting as a result of this conversation, anything like that, recruiting student athletes.
But it's just the profile of the university.
Yes, that's the yes. It's not a good look at all.
I mean, you don't want to be the redneck uncle at the family reunion.
Right. You don't want to be so you don't want to be Oklahoma State.
You don't want to be drinking a Busch Light tall boy in the country club.
Yeah, you don't want to spill it on some high-level lawyer's sleeve, because you're a little tipsy. Hey, yeah, it's interesting. I was reading your column, and I'm glad you said that about profile, because I just kind of shook my head like, man, Nebraska got booted out of this.
A lot of it was the separation of the medical school and the Lincoln campus. Now they are considered one campus.
It's not a good look, though. It's a prestige matter.
Some of our users brought up a great point. Like,
what's that?
Why couldn't they have just got this all figured out ahead of time?
Well, my guess is because of power. Those campuses there's concentrations of power, just like anything in life. There's concentrations of power. They probably didn't want to give up power. They probably didn't want to give up money.
And why were Texas, Michigan, and Wisconsin in 2011 so adamant to do this to Nebraska?
There's a good question.
They were the ones that led this to remove them at that time. Well, all those people are long gone. We talked to Troy Dannon about this back in May, and he said, usually you'd get like a probationary period, like an opportunity to correct things, a la move the campuses into one and get it all done, like what's happening now. And so what happened in Nebraska was unheard of.
Yeah. I know. That's
there's more to the story. And, you just have this feeling that Perlman was a part of it.
Oh, great.
Like just his,
But Harvey wouldn't want Nebraska out of the AAU.
No, but like there had to have been a better solution here. And here we are. But, Dr. Gold brought up some great points about getting this corrected. And, they're doing everything to get there. And they've lined it up. But is it a guarantee they're going to get back? No. I mean, I'm optimistic they will.
10 years. I'll be retired.
You'll be down in El Paso,
or I'd say Paraguay would be a better place. A little further south, Sean. I'm angling.
A little looser loss.
All right. What else?
All right.
What else in odds and
how about Oregon?
How about the decision by Lanning? 3rd and 25 late in the game against Ohio State. 3rd and 25. Ohio State has the ball. 3rd and 25. Lanning puts out an extra player, 12. So he has 12, gets flagged. But
did it on purpose.
Did it on purpose because live ball, foul, no time, or time does go off the clock and it doesn't get put back on. That's the key. 4 seconds elapse, doesn't get put back on. Brilliant move. Ohio State, I think, is down to 6 seconds now.
They were kind of in a purgatory where Will Howard didn't have any time. I mean, he had to get rid of the ball quick, and he didn't.
Right. So they're at the back up so people understand. 43. It's Ohio State 3rd and 25 at the 43-yard line of Oregon. Dan Lanning and his staff thinks, hey, we can give up 5 yards here. They're still not going to be in field goal position at the 38. Their kicker's longest field goal is a 47-yarder career. So they took it. They said, well, put a guy out there. Brilliant. Next level. If you're an Oregon fan, you feel really good about your head coach right now because that is next level thinking.
And Urban Meyer, Matt Rule, everyone just commended the thinking. Like Urban Meyer, his quote was, all these years I've been playing checkers. Dan Lanning's playing chess.
Smart guy. And those guys are so situational football oriented. And Nebraska fans should thank their lucky stars that they have a situational football coach. But Lanning clearly has thought about that situation. And what are the chances it's going to arise?
Well, and Tony White, I asked him, and he didn't. I mean, he didn't know like that was like something you could do
because
it's football, so rare.
Because football is so full of
rules,
obscure situations that can come up that you don't expect, you don't prepare for, because you cannot prepare for everything.
Well, like in college football, the pass interference rule is a great thing you can take advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you get beat 50 yards down the field, tackle them, 15-yard penalty.
15-yard penalty. That's exactly right. It happens all the time. So yeah, that was a major part of the weekend. There was a developing story this week, a great win by Oregon.
And they changed the rule.
Yeah, they changed the rule already, right? So you can't inside of 2 minutes, you can't do that.
One, What's funny
is that what they changed it to?
Yeah, I don't know if it's inside. No matter what, you get the decision if you want the time, or you can take the time back.
Okay.
Or you get the 5 yards, but you have the decision with the time now.
Okay.
But, Tosh Lapoy, who's also on that Oregon staff, he's the guy that gets credit for the faking of the injury rule.
Oh, God, really?
And so they've got a few innovators there, and Tosh Lapoy is the D coordinator.
Yeah, you're like a good attorney. You look for loopholes. And that's Lanning just found a very obscure loophole and took advantage of it at an incredibly important time in his program's history.
Like the faking the injury rule, like that's hard, but somebody brought up a great point. How about if you are out with an injury, you cannot return for that entire offensive series?
Yeah.
Like there's got to be something to combat that too, because we've seen a lot of like teams use that over the years.
Absolutely. Okay, what else strikes you? What struck me about that game, by the way, Ohio State and Urban Meyer's before the season, and even Jim Tressel said this is Ohio State's roster. This is the best accumulation of talent Ohio State's ever had. I didn't see that against Oregon. They didn't get to Dylan Gabriel, for instance, much. They didn't run the ball particularly well. They had a long run. If you take that run away, which I hate doing that because the run happened, but they didn't get much done after that besides that run.
That's a hard stadium to play in at night, too.
Oh, God, it's loud. Yeah. Autzen Stadium at night.
Over 10 million watch that game.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't look at this Ohio State game like Nebraska is this. I don't look at Ohio State as this inconquerable force, especially in a big noon game.
Well, and the other thing I'd say about Ohio State looking ahead is all the quarterbacks that Nebraska has faced from Ohio State. Where would you rank Will Howard over all the other ones? I mean,
I'd have to think about it, but
JT Barrett, CJ Stroud, you go down the list. I mean,
he's not as good as those two.
No.
I mean, Barrett was not an NFL
Braxton Miller,
Joe
Burrow.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Like he's far down and since Nebraska's been a Big Ten member, he's pretty far down the list of what we've seen at Ohio State at quarterback.
Now, people are going to look at his stats against Oregon and say, are you sure about that? He put up big numbers in that game, but down the stretch kind of got found out.
He's got great receivers, though, and great backs.
Yeah.
And an elite play caller.
Yeah. Yep.
So
he should put up good numbers. But down the stretch, if you look at that last possession, shaky.
All right. In the Big Ten this week, though, let's get through the games. Friday night, we'll get Oregon at Purdue.
I'm always interested in that kind of game.
28.5-point spread for Oregon.
Yeah. People would say, why would you possibly? Because, I mean, can Purdue hang in there? I mean, Oregon coming off a huge win.
You know, we could go to that game.
Oh, tempting.
No.
Tempting.
You're going to be at El Toro.
Probably. Okay. Keep going.
All right. Nebraska, Indiana, 6.5-point spread. UCLA.
Tell me you're not intrigued.
At Rutgers.
Tell me you're not intrigued. UCLA, which is just scuffling in its first year, goes to play a team that we think is pretty good, but lost 52-6 to Wisconsin last week. Rutgers just beats you up, even in their worst moments. Is a back alley brawling team. How's UCLA handle that? Sean, I got to tell you, it's a very interesting game.
Well, then
I won't see, by the way.
You've got Wisconsin, also an 11 a.m. game at Northwestern.
If you want to nap, if you can watch TV on Saturday morning and you feel kind of tired, you'll fall right to sleep during that game.
Isn't it interesting though? Like so many people fired their shot at Wisconsin, like
at Fickle,
and
here he comes.
I mean, you got to think that drove him a little bit.
Oh yeah. Oh God, yes. It drives it. It's not just Fickle; it's the staff that drives those guys.
I mean, you got former, and we actually had seen things like that here with former players going at coaches, and we get that angle as much as anybody.
Yep, but they did that there. They're doing it at Iowa a little bit right now too. By the way, that Ferentz is not getting a lot of outside support. You know, they won. They beat Washington handily, but before that game, it's a little hot.
You just wonder, who does Iowa want to succeed, Ferentz?
I don't know. I mean, Bob Stoops would be number one, but he ain't coming out of retirement.
No. I mean, like Kleiman and
Stoops played there, Sean. He was a safety.
So
there.
Kleiman and Leipold are two guys that have always made sense, but you always hear Kleiman.
Doesn't sound like Kleiman's interested.
He wants 3 or 4 more years and he's going to retire.
Yeah.
And Leipold's is not.
They're 1-5.
Well, and he's a good coach, but he's older too.
He's 60.
Mark Stoops.
Lance is 60.
Mark Stoops.
Stoops would make sense.
Oh, why leave Kentucky? He's making $9 million.
Why leave Kentucky? He might not have a choice.
He's making. Wait.
Oh, they're not. They're scuffling a little bit.
Didn't they just beat somebody good this year?
They beat. No, I don't think
Yeah,
so.
they beat LSU or somebody like.
I think maybe they beat it, but no, they're not.
They're 3-3 or 4-2, aren't they?
Well, 3-3. I think that's what Kentucky wants right now from a guy they're paying $9 million plus to.
It's funny, like he's a notorious for like working the market. I mean,
okay, Sean, let's put it this way: A&M just turned him down.
He was there on a plane.
A&M turned him down,
and they didn't let him off the plane.
Now, would Iowa turn him down? Probably not.
Michigan, Illinois. That's the CBS
Oh,
game.
it's a good game. God,
Michigan is a 3.5-point favorite in Champaign.
Big game for Illinois. Is Illinois real? Are they really a rank? Do they deserve a top 25 ranking? Let's see it.
And then you've got USC at Maryland, another random game.
They just send those teams across the country. It's amazing.
You wonder if UCLA and USC could like share a plane on this trip. No, they need a bigger plane than that, but like they dang near could like figure out a way to coordinate travel.
This conference is sort of. I'll just bite my tongue right there. Iowa, Michigan State, snoozer. There you go.
Yeah, I'd like to see Iowa. I mean, Washington was a good win, but I'd like to see them play like one of the better teams. I mean, just to get a better taste for them.
Iowa?
Yeah. And they're going to play Wisconsin.
They played Ohio State.
Yeah, and they got smoked.
Down 7 at half. But got smoked in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, Iowa has not played Ohio State a lot either. I mean, it's kind of like a rare deal where their schedules has been set up the way, but they've got Northwest. I mean, Iowa's not going to really get tested. I mean, listen to this schedule: Michigan State, Northwestern, Wisconsin,
not bad.
UCLA,
Jeez,
Maryland,
jeez,
Nebraska.
God, that's about as manageable as it gets.
And Iowa, I mean, that's the schedule they always get.
That's as manageable as it gets.
They were the only team that got 3 protected games.
God dang, the scheduling in college football is a to me, it's a huge concern. The inequity of, for instance, what Iowa faces versus
like Iowa doesn't
what
play,
Georgia faces.
Like Iowa doesn't play Illinois.
Yeah, the scheduling inequity I'll never completely come to terms with. It's because some teams get it so bad, and then some like Iowa, it's just like
compare it to Purdue.
Right, exactly. Or compare Rutgers. Rutgers is real easy schedule, like Iowa.
But Purdue's is like ridiculous.
Purdue's ridiculous. It's a gauntlet that I just can't believe that Ryan Walters will survive.
Yeah, here's Rutgers' schedule.
Thank you, Megan. Check it. So they have at USC, Minnesota, at Maryland, Illinois. Yeah, that's not bad at all. That's not bad at all.
No, I mean, Rutgers, and here's Purdue.
There's Purdue. That's the one that I wanted to see. Thank you, Megan.
Notre Dame, Oregon State, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Illinois. So, I mean,
come on.
And then Oregon.
Come on.
Ohio State, Penn State.
Come on.
In Indiana.
Come on.
That's crazy.
That is. What if Nebraska had that?
Well, Scott Frost had that schedule in 2021, and they went 3-9.
Right. Scheduling.
They played 8 teams in 21 that won 9 or more games.
Thanks to Megan, we just saw scheduling inequity right before our face. I mean, that is pretty amazing.
All right. Well, we will have our Husker Online postgame live show in Bloomington, probably around 5:00 Central Time.
Okay.
But in the meantime, we're staying in Indy. So what does that mean, Steve Sipple?
Well, I suppose we're going to El Toro. Now, I just want to, we address things in a transparent way on this show. I'm not married to the idea of El Toro.
Well, you're married to the idea of a $100 steak too, aren't you?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, I'm open to other ideas than El Toro. I am. If you guys change, I'll be fine. I would go eat seafood. I would eat Italian. But El Toro would be fine. I think it's the cheapest option. It's the cheapest option.
Well, it's got some history with us.
It's got some history. I just wonder if it's going to be manageable in that place. It's a little wild.
Yeah, it's like a Texas Roadhouse type atmosphere as well. All the
no more like a club. Like it's thumping club atmosphere.
The dancing, the music.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, you can see I'm a little. I kind of think of El Toro as the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday place, and then
we've never been there on a Friday night.
Right. I wonder what that's gonna look like. Yeah,
a lot of big groups.
I hate to express my hesitancy in this very real setting, but whatever. No, we don't have to go get $100 steak. I'd go to Outback.
Hey, you
said to me and Robin have decided we want to go to Outback, I'd say, okay.
We went to Outback in Houston.
Yeah, it was good.
It was good.
It was really good. I never have a bad
you know what?
Outback.
I've been to Outback twice in like the last 10 years, both times with you. I'm a big fan. We went to Outback in Kansas City.
We're a little rough. Pipes froze. Had to leave.
Well, it was pretty rough in Houston too. I mean, there were pit bulls.
It was pretty
rough. There were pit bulls running down the street in the neighborhood.
It was a little rough in Houston too. We didn't want to walk back to the hotel. It was walking distance, but we decided.
Yeah, Houston was. We were in a different part of Houston.
Yeah, we're in an interesting time in this country.
We weren't in the suburbs.
No.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us here. Again, we'll be back for Husker Online Postgame Live. And if you're not a member of Husker Online, we got a great promo right now. Get $40 off your annual. Simply use the promo code Husker40. That's Husker40 to receive $40 off your annual membership. For Steve Sipple, I'm Sean Callahan signing off here for Husker Online Headlines.